The point of the First Amendment, the point of the Bill of Rights, the point of the Constitution, hamstring the government. Why? Let's answer that question. Why is that a mystery to a Supreme Court justice? It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Subscribe to the Will Cain Show in the description of this live stream right now. Just hit expand and you'll see a link to Will Cain Show on YouTube. Hit subscribe. You can watch and listen to the Will Cain Show whenever you like. The Supreme Court of the United States heard arguments this week over whether or not the government can play a role in influencing social media companies to censor free speech. Oral arguments were on Monday, and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had a fascinating exchange with the Attorney General of Louisiana, who, along with the state of Missouri, are suing to keep the federal government out of the business of censorship. I think you should listen to this exchange because it reveals a mindset and a deeper problem in the United States.
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods. What would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it, is not going to get it done. And so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country.
The government has a duty to censor speech. And the justice is concerned that by limiting the government's ability to censor, you are hamstringing the government. Let's set a little bit of groundwork here, a little bit of 101, not law school 101, civics 101, the type of thing you might learn in 5th, 6th, or 7th grade. The United States Constitution was written with the expressed intent and purpose of hamstringing the government from infringing upon the freedom and the rights of the people. Concerned that the Constitution, in laying out the limited powers of the government, wasn't enough, the founders controversially, and it is controversial, something that we can explore in greater depth, controversially adopted the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights then limited the powers of the government and their ability to infringe on the rights of the citizen, hamstringing the government. The very first right they enshrined in the Bill of Rights was the First Amendment, which included the right to free speech, showing the priorities of our founders in ensuring that the government was hamstrung in its ability to censor speech. But this has somehow escaped Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, let us first acknowledge that no right is absolute. There are limitations on the First Amendment. There are limitations on free speech. Those limitations exclude speech that is defamatory, fraudulent, speech that is illegal in its creation, such as child pornography. You have to violate a law to create a piece of content then one claims is speech, and that is not protected because of its underlying illegality. There is also the direct incitement to violence standard on when you can limit speech. Many people seem to think it's yelling fire in a crowded theater. That is certainly not the limitation on free speech. It was set forth in 1969 in a case called Brandenburg versus the United States, that your speech, and this is important, and it is appropriate to understand in today's day and age as people come after Donald Trump regarding January 6th, whether or not your speech directly incites violence. And by the way, the standard for that historically has been basically, hey boys, let's go kill them. It is literal direct incitement to violence. So yes, there are limitations on the First Amendment. But more importantly, we are seeing I think, unprecedented, at least in my lifetime, attack on the philosophical grounding of free speech. People hate free speech today in America. At least a significant percentage of the population hates free speech today. Now, we should start out by saying the United States of America is unique. When I say unique, I don't mean like, oh, we're cool. I mean, we are almost singular in our devotion to free speech. Every other country on the planet does not embrace, philosophically or legally, the idea that we hold so dear. Not Canada, not the UK, not almost every other country in Europe, and certainly not your third world countries where it's like, say what you want to say. That's a foundational ingredient in a constitutional republic. Almost every other civilization has limited speech greatly, and often under the banner of quote-unquote hate speech. The fly in the ointment is always who defines hatred, and the definer, the one who writes the dictionary, retains the power. And that's the point. You know, what we did here in the United States is unique because our very human nature is to yell, shut up. We want to yell, shut up to anybody that we don't like what they're saying. It's an instinct. We can acknowledge it, that exists within all of us. But the principle hopefully overrides the instinct. We don't yell, shut up, at least not societally, not legally. And we don't use the power of the government to enforce shut up on one another. And in the end, that's what this is about. It's about power. Whoever writes the dictionary gets the power. Whoever sets the limits of free speech gets the power. Again, human nature, to have power over another human being. And I don't think, throughout our history, we have had debates over vulgarity in the 90s when it came to music. We've had debates over pornography. We've had debates over extreme political speech dating back to the 1930s. We've had debates about the limitations of free speech, but I don't know that certainly in my lifetime, and I don't know in American history, have we seen a bigger cultural movement embraced by at least a significant percentage of the population that is anti-free speech. I don't know that we've ever had a moment where the cultural embrace has been more rejected, where the embrace of free speech has been more threatened. And you hear it here from the bench, shockingly, of the Supreme Court of the United States. Bring us to the deeper issue, or one of the deeper issues, in what you're hearing from Ketanji Brown Jackson. You are listening to a Supreme Court justice that doesn't understand or rejects those fundamental values, the protector of our constitutional republic. How did that end up the case? DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a fascinating exchange between former CNN host Don Lemon and ex-owner Elon Musk about lowering standards in the name of DEI. It's a mystery to Lemon as they have this exchange. Like, he can't really process a hypothetical. If you lower standards, how does that threaten lives? How does that threaten anything? He can't come up with an example, and he asks Musk, and Musk talks about, doctors, surgeons, like, if you deprioritize merit, competency, if you lower the MCAT score necessity, or you lower the residency testing standards in practice, you're going to get worse surgeons, and that's going to cost people their lives. If you lower the standards for pilots, you get more airline industry accidents. If you lower the standards for anything, the SAT, the LSAT, standards for a licensed plumber or electrician, if you lower the standards, you get a worse product. Now, why would you lower the standards? Because DEI asks you to lower the standards in pursuit of a different goal, a different priority. Racial equity. Prioritize someone's skin color, maybe their gender. Prioritize it over their competency. Lower a standard for a different, utopic goal or priority. And the Biden administration laid this out clear to us when they went to appoint on the Supreme Court Ketanji Brown Jackson. They said they would only appoint, Joe Biden said, a black female. There's argument isn't there in something inherently less than by someone who is female or someone who's black. I would say, in my estimation, the greatest legal mind sitting on the Supreme Court, the one who comes closest to the definition of genius, is a black man. It is Clarence Thomas. He's an absolute constitutional rock star, an intellectual behemoth, the likes of which we will miss for decades, in the same way we miss Justice Antonin Scalia. No, it's whether or not you place different priorities in seeking out a Supreme Court justice. And they made no bones about it. They made no secret about it. The Biden administration said, not that they would seek out the best qualified, the most competent, the one with the most merit, but instead they would prioritize someone's skin color and gender. And when you do that, you inherently lower the standards. You inherently lower the standards. You've said it blatantly. You've laid it out. You did not say, I'm going to look for the best person. You said, I'm going to look for the best black female. Different priorities. And you get someone sitting on the bench that doesn't understand or openly rejects the foundational element that preserves this unique experiment in human history, this constitutional republic, the United States of America. The point of the First Amendment, the point of the Bill of Rights, and the point of the United States Constitution is to hamstring the government.